You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Welcome, folks, to Making Data Simple. This is Al Martin, your hostess with the mostest. Today, I have a guest, Tony Ayaz, and Tony is the co-founder and CEO of Gemini Data. We're going to go into it, but let me first welcome you to the podcast, Tony. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity.
No, this is going to be fun. We'll go every place here today. This is more like talk soup, as I often say. So let's jump right in there. You're the co-founder of and CEO of Gemini Data, and you have deep experience with enterprise data, artificial intelligence, entrepreneurship. But I want you to describe yourself, if you wouldn't mind. This is your life, Tony, type deal. And then I'll start breaking up. I want to talk about Gemini today. I want to talk about some of the experience you do have. What do you think about overall data? Where you think AI is going? We'll hit all those different areas. But first, I just want to hear about you and a little bit of your history.
Yeah, thank you again. My history has just always been deep in enterprise software for 20 plus years. I've always been very deep into new technologies or new enterprise software technologies that have been introduced into the market, starting back with working with Microsoft solutions. Then the most interesting part where I got a jump start was when the application server was introduced to the market, which is the whole middleware market. It was a company called BEA, and we had a product called WebLogic Server, which is now part of Oracle's middleware stack. So that was really interesting to see that foundational period where web applications were coming live, and fast forward to where we're at today and all the pros and cons of how it's created in terms of challenges for enterprises out there. And also have experience in the APM space, application performance management. Spent some time at a company called Wiley Technology, was acquired by CA, where was the first lead company that started that APM space in terms of how to troubleshoot performance management challenges when deploying web applications. And more relevant, I was part of the first 21 employees at Splunk, where we introduced one of the first early big data solutions into the market, which is still one of the leaders. So deep enterprise software experience, primarily around the challenges of data and either making it work, operate, or getting answers from it has been the core of my experience.
Very good, very good. The only negative in there is BEA and on top of Oracle. You know that I'm a DB2 Informix zealot, but nobody's perfect, Tony. That's okay.
And WebSphere as well, right?
So where are you from? Where do you currently lay your head at right now?
I live in Marin County, but our company's located here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we're about 10 minutes north of the Golden Gate, and operate here as well as offices in Europe and in Asia.
Nice. That's good country. Where were you originally from?
I grew up in San Diego, so I had to follow the sunny weather from San Diego to the Bay Area, which if you're on the north side of the Bay, it's a little bit more sunnier, and some people don't get to experience this side, but there is blue skies outside of the Bay Area if you happen to be unfortunate and be stuck in St. Cloud when you're visiting for conferences.
But either way, you're a California kid.
Correct.
True. Very good. So a couple things, and I'll jump back into Gemini in a minute, but I think you're a board member of Zoom Data, which, via my research calls itself the fastest visual analytics for big data. Anything that you can elaborate there?
Yeah, I think it's all about the fast visual analytics. There's so much information and data, and we've all heard about the 5 V's, volume, variety, veracity, all those things that are out there. And the key challenge that Zoom Data is addressing is how fast can you visualize that data from a business intelligence perspective. And that's been an interesting area to see where there's a deep need for understanding what all this information that enterprises have collected comes together and what it means and how analysts or data scientists can use this information. The BI market is kind of in a transformative state right now because of how AI and machine learning are impacting the way people go about analyzing their data, whether it be for security, whether it's for digital transformation. And BI is kind of in an interesting state right now where there's heavy reliance on using that, but there's a bigger challenge behind it where how do I actually make sure that the data that I am presenting for analysis is the right data and how can I get access to it real quickly? And that's part of the problem that we're trying to address here at Gemini.
Okay, I'll get to that. So did you stand up Zoom Data, or are you just a board member thereafter?
I'm actually one of the first angel investors in Zoom Data. Helped it from the perspective of developing the go-to-market strategy and helping in the fundraise process as well. So been with them from the beginning when we were trying to introduce a new way of BI for visual analytics.
Oh, very good. So, and you also, looking through your resume, so to speak here, you're vice president at Splunk for several years on the sales team, is that correct?
Correct.
So are you a sales guy? Are you a technical guy? Are you a data scientist? Which persona are you?
I'm somewhere between a product and sales guy. So, in blend of knowing enough about the technology and space, but the sales side really kicks in from the perspective of understanding customer pain. And that's why I'm excited to have my own company and take those experiences together to really knowing the customer pain and challenges they've had and helping build a solution to alleviate a lot of those concerns.
So let's dive into your own company then. Gemini Data, and as I was looking at the website and different things about Gemini or doing my own research, you've characterized it as it provides autonomous data infrastructure to analyze, virtualize, and converge all enterprise data silos, dedicated to helping global customers simplify the data chaos, which that rings well for this podcast in terms of making data simple. So I align with all of that, but does that characterize Gemini well? And if it does, then I want to start breaking some of those areas down.
Yeah, I think it does a little bit in terms of how of our technology operates, and autonomous data infrastructure, as we call it, ADI, is a core element of how we deliver our architecture and how it operates. But quite simply, Gemini operationalizes, connects, and transforms enterprise data into knowledge for fast, actionable intelligence. And the key area for us to focus is on the areas where customers have invested heavily on big data platforms or they have other data silos, and they're trying to either, one, extract information from these big data platforms or other data silos, and then the second thing that they might be doing, or a combination of the two, is trying to connect the dots between this information, because we're entering this phase of where there's a lot of different platforms, there's a lot of different silos, and customers are really struggling on where they've moved this data into a particular centralized platform. How do I actually gain value from that? And that's what we're trying to do when we say we're operationalizing and connecting to transform the data. The autonomous data infrastructure is what we build from the perspective of using AI and ML libraries to work with the existing investments that customers have made, whether they have data in a data lake, whether they have information in a Splunk data platform, or if they have just traditional data sources that are direct and native. The key is how do you actually extract this information in a much more easier way versus trying to learn how to deploy those systems, run complex queries that each are customized or proprietary to the data platforms or environments that you purchased or using in your environment. How do you seamlessly unify those different environments together, but provide a single way to analyze the information?
So when you're talking autonomous data infrastructure, can you dive down a little further into the technical specifics? Meaning, so if we're talking a data lake, if we're talking direct data sources, do you have a set of metadata that governs or is put across these different data sources so they're easily findable? I mean, so what does that exactly mean in terms of the solution that you're providing?
Yeah, so kind of give a quick little context. So today you have a lot of information that's sitting in silos. Again, as I mentioned, and sitting in these big data platforms where either it's in that or it's some sort of other data lake. And these things really require a lot of ETL and complicated ways to actually extract this information out of systems. And that becomes very, very complex, and let alone not to mention the expertise required to do that, because we've moved the data from its direct sources into a centralized platform because that's the thing to do at a faster level to collect things like machine data in Splunk's case. Then you have other aspects where you've taken lots of different data and batch or other methods and directly put them into data lakes. Or you may have repositories that are just simply data warehouses that are sitting with tools. Well, each one of these different areas actually requires you to have a high level of expertise to extract information out of them. And there are people that do that today. But then the next level where the AI and ML kind of kick in is like, well, how do I apply machine learning to actually make sense of all these different integration points, right? Because machine learning ultimately is all about integration, and how do I bring these different data sources together to actually take the best out of it and actually provide value into it. And from that perspective, it's really important for us to make sure that when you're using these different systems, you shouldn't have to learn about these different proprietary languages. You shouldn't have to worry about these different query languages that are there. You should have a system that autonomously analyzes information that brings it together in a much more seamless way. And what we've done from the perspective of how we do this is we have two core elements: is the converge and virtualize go together, where we're actually allowing you to leverage data virtualization directly at its source, whether it's a native direct source or whether it's sitting in a big data environment. We actually allow you to virtualize that data, or metadata, if you will, of exactly what it is that you need to do analysis and query on without moving that data, and allowing you to then drop the data back in after we actually have the metadata that's relevant to connect the dots in terms of the query that's needed. And that's one of the key ways of technology approaches that we're addressing this, is that you no longer have to move the data around to get it to a certain place and normalize that information, but rather use the autonomous data infrastructure to actually extract it at its source, connect the dots, and make it available for the analysis that it's needed.
When you have the ADI, is it a console that essentially does the virtualization and essentially hooks up the integration points in the background? I mean, is there, like, for example, a Gemini console that does this?
Yeah, we have a management console for that specific aspect of it that will actually tell you from where the resources, where the data is coming in, all the management that goes into it, to actually see the resources and information that's coming together, absolutely. But the other interface that we have on top of that is the ability to do a single query and extract information from all of those various different buckets that you have it connected to. And that's really powerful, because on the back end, you have to unify the data. And when you unify it, then you have to actually have the ability to go across and run the single query that's all ANSI SQL based, that allows you to make sure that you don't have to learn these proprietary languages or take 6 to 12 months of training in order to extract the information, but rather let the system figure out how to unify the data and bring it together. And this is all done on a modern architecture, open standards, and in leveraging microservices architecture to provide that flexibility for organizations. And we're one of the first companies, in regards to taking even big data platforms like Splunk and running it on these modern architectures to provide much more management capabilities around that system, but as well as to extract the information from it. And if it's maybe data sitting in an elastic environment, for example, in the open source world, we can extract it from that. And as again mentioned before, it could be connected directly to the native source if you don't have an investment or don't care to move the data into these data platforms. We can access it that way as well. And this is all designed from the ground up as a very scalable distributed system that will also leverage GPUs as we kind of enter that phase in the future as well.
So define, if you wouldn't mind, virtualization, because I think there's many industry definitions out there, particularly as it as it's related to federation? What's your definition of virtualization?
From our definition, there's two part of it. One is you have to a process that can eliminate the ETL process, or at least the transform and load action from the data sources that's coming from, right? Requires you to connect not only the data relationships that you're from these silos that you're bringing, but without the data movement and without recopying the data and moving it to another environment. That's the key part in terms of the data virtualization. That's really critical in terms of extracting that information from these different sources and automating the process.
So bottom line is you've got this, you've got the Gemini console, like pane of glass, virtualizes across various sources, which, as you've outlined, could be a data lake, could be warehouse, could be Splunk, could be any other silos. I mean, I presume there's many more that are supported. You bring it in, and then I presume then you do analytics on that data, and or then take it a step further and do AI on that data. I mean, can you explain the following process?
Sure. So the first step is connecting to that data, converging the different data sources together, layering the data virtualization where it can take that metadata and extract it and provide that value. And the next level is the analyze. So this is where you want to make the data accessible. Now, we have our own interface that can actually go in and provide the query capabilities and let you analyze the data directly from our interface. And as well as we leverage Investigate, which is another feature in the product that allows you to see the relationship entities and relationships of the data you've actually collected. So it makes it easier for you to see, okay, these relationships are linked together, this data is linked together in a much more easier, simpler way. However, we also realize that a lot of customers today have invested a lot in BI and visualization tools that the business analysts or other users are used to the interfaces that they have, but their bigger problem is on the back end of how to get access to this data in a much more seamless way. So we actually have an integration with tools such as Tableau and soon with Zoom Data as well, that allow you to leverage that interface of a BI tool. Because what I think the challenge we have today is we're expecting the business analysts to also be enterprise architects and developers at the same time, and security experts, where their main job is they understand that line of business they're responsible for, using the BI tools that's accessible to them, but they shouldn't be required to learn new proprietary languages. They should be able to know the basics of SQL and understanding how BI tools operate, and let them get access to that information. So we make it very flexible from an interface to use our way, which is fast and scalable, or if you prefer to use your own BI tool on top of it separately, we can do that too.
So who, if you don't mind saying, I mean, who would be a competitor in this area, and what differentiation do you offer?
We fit in a couple of buckets. In terms of the one that customers kind of compare us to is Palantir. And a differentiation for us from that perspective is that Palantir is a great company, been around for a while, built solutions to connect disparate data sources. However, they did this in a more customized services fashion. It's not completely productized. So what the advancements in technology where things have done in our experience in big data, we've learned how to leverage these existing big data investments and how to bring it together. So we're providing a software and automated way to not only get access to disparate information, but then to link these relationships together in a fast, efficient way, leveraging software. So that's come in the eyes of some of our customers that we've spoken to. On the other end, you also have some companies in the data management world that have been doing ETL, that are integration tools that are out there that try to fast track the ETL process. But at the end of the day, their architectures are not designed with today's modern requirements in mind. So it makes it really challenging for them to do it. And that's only kind of like the subset of the ETL piece that we provide value in. So it kind of summarizes some of the data management players out there, some companies like Palantir that are trying to connect the disparate data, but again, do it in a services fashion and much more longer process versus doing it as pure software.
Do you always virtualize the data? I mean, is your solution set up to have multiple data sources, and the beauty of it is to converge all this these enterprise data silos?
Do we need to do it all the time? I mean, that's one of those it depends questions, but ideally, yes. And this is kind of the reason why I'm excited to be a co-founder of the company, because when I spent a lot of time in the big data space and even saw the process from Zoom Data, there was a huge demand from customers that said, look, I have silos and silos of information. Our technical guys collected this information, put it together, and I don't know how to bring it together. And what they're trying to understand ultimately is that 80% of this information that I'm collecting, I think is probably not needed, but the 20%, I wanted to figure out how to get to that 20%. So to me, the data virtualization is a layer that helps in that process, because you can't just expect customers to keep moving data around from platform to platform and then finally find that needle in the haystack for them. You've got to leverage a little bit more of automation and all of the modern architectures that are available today. Again, open standards, because that's another factor in this, is that when we talk to healthcare, to financial services organization, people aren't looking to invest in proprietary data platforms anymore. They expect you to have an open standards where you are using components, technology that are fairly open with, of course, your own customization and IP on top of it. But that's as a result of the fact that they've been challenged quite a bit by the investments in these proprietary technologies where they thought they could get the answer of them. But if you fast forward just even from between the evolution of when big data really started in 2005 to now, right? That's well beyond 10 years of space between the lifespan that you can start looking back and saying, yeah, you know what? Maybe those environments that we thought were modern are a little legacy. And I was talking to a colleague of mine today, and we had this nice debate and saying, well, a lot of these big data platforms are really modern still. Why would you say that they're legacy? I said, well, let's just simply look at the dates, right? It's pretty well established. 2005, when a lot of big data platforms came onto market, and we're by 2019. That's a lot of years in between. But I said the reason why people think that these environments are modern is because that's how complicated they have been. And just now people are really realizing either the challenges with it, or maybe they figured out a way how to seamlessly collect information. And there are some that have done it with a lot of time and money and expertise thrown behind it. But it's been a huge challenge, and people are just starting to wake up and saying, okay, how am I going to make this easier and more operational than it has been?
So I get the look, it's kind of a motto that we've been driving, or I've been driving, as I lead hybrid data management here at IBM, and that is, hey, no more ETL, and get rid of ETL. So I think there's huge value in that, particularly when clients have so many disparate data sources. Hell, now they have data lakes upon data lakes. But my question here is, in terms of the virtualization, I mean, in some sense, a customer asked me this the other day, well, it sounds like it's too good to be true, in that I can just leave everything where it resides. There's got to be drawbacks, or there's got to be a pros and cons, whether that's performance or the integrity of the data source that you begin with. What do you see are the pros and cons? I mean, what are the cons of going with something like virtualization?
Yeah, I think that performance is an impact of everywhere that people have to consider with how you're getting access, because from our perspective, it works wherever the data is residing. So what do I mean by that? For example, if you have data on premise and you're trying to take that data and then move it to the cloud and trying to do the analysis that way, that's probably going to create some challenges around it. But if we actually work side by side with the data on premise, and it will work much more seamlessly from a performance perspective, or if the entire data set has been moved and migrated to the cloud, it's closer to the source. I think that's a huge variable in terms of the performance and access you're getting from the system. I will also say that, we've always, the cloud, to be cloud or not to be cloud is something that's been well debated. But nowadays, I think using cloud to give you that additional processing power, because it's just beyond storage, but it's the processing power that you're actually using in that environment, and the cloud gives organizations a much more flexibility to expand and have better performance in terms of the capability, then as well as to scale up or scale down the systems to control infrastructure costs. We also like to kind of refer to data infrastructure, right? As a company, the data infrastructure that people have today are completely have to be re-architected, right? Especially in this midst of digital transformation, you have people that are still migrating towards a microservices architecture, looking at how they're going to leverage GPUs in the future to have better performance and scalability. They're also looking from the perspective of how do I make the accessibility to the data when they do analysis that much easier. So these are all of the challenges, which I wouldn't say these are all new challenges, but it's something that at Gemini we've learned early on because our roots are around scaling and optimizing big data. And we knew that from the very early on when we started the company in 2015 that these weren't easy things to do. And as we progressed in the company working with customers around the world, we also looked at kind of what are the ways to actually architect in the best way without data movement and making sure that the analysis speed is at the right level to get the results or action you're looking for.
Very good. Very good. Okay, well that's good information. Let's kind of wrap in terms of the Gemini piece, kind of where we should have started. And I would say that so why go co-found Gemini? Well, why are you here right now? What made you or prompted or was the trigger point to say, look, the industry needs this right now?
As I mentioned, I was an early Splunk from 0 customers to well above 1,000 customers, and I got to see firsthand how fast big data was being adopted. But the things that's really struck with me in working with clients was their level of excitement around getting the data, but it was also their confusion. And how am I actually going to use this information? How can I make this easier? And that's, for me, with Gemini, along with the former co-founder and CEO of Splunk and a few others that we worked together, started this company to say, let's look at it as a more broader perspective of how information is coming and how can we actually connect the dots for the line of business. That's the ultimate line that we were trying to pull, or excuse me, the ultimate route that we're trying to go after is making this information much more actionable and accessible for line of business owners. Because I think in the middle where IT teams are there, they can extract information, but the big challenge today is how do you transform this data to line of business owners and how they can actually make sense from it. So that's the starting point, because I think the big data environments was the starting point, like let's get this information, it's usable. And I think we're stuck in that middle piece of how am I going to make this usable for the business, and that's really what I'd like to accomplish with Gemini, and we're starting to do that with our ADI platform, and in the future deliver this in a much more automated way.
So we've talked about a lot. So if I'm a client listening out there, and I'm trying to get my head around this, what do you say are a few trigger points in their mind they should think, hey, I should call Gemini Data about this? I mean, if they got what question or whatever, when should they reach out to you?
Yeah, if you're looking at digital transformation and try to connect your silos of data that you've collected over the past 5 to 10 years, that's a good trigger point to talk to us and discuss how to move forward in making the data more accessible. If you're looking at working in a hybrid environment where you haven't completely bought off with your cloud to go to cloud from on-prem, we have hybrid solutions that can actually extract this information, be it via our ADI platform that can connect these different data sets together and allow you to do more with your data. And then the last point is just, I guess, in a simple way to describe it, is if you're looking at a data availability as a challenge to access this data in IT operations, security, or on various line of business owners that are tied to finance, we can help you kind of eliminate the red tape, as if you will, in terms of bringing the information together.
Sweetness. I think you hit Gemini very hard. I think it was good. You did the company well. Can I pivot and talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and what you're doing there? So I know you're an investor and mentor in founder.org, which helps university students around the world launch and maintain new startups. Can you talk about how you got that started? I mean, is there there must be a passion behind that, and there must have been a mentor you had or trouble you had on your way that you're trying to solve. I mean, can you talk about how you started that and what got you into it?
Yeah, it was an organization that was started with Michael Baum, who's the founder and CEO of Splunk. He started an organization to give back to entrepreneurship. And at the time, it was very early days of Gemini. We were starting to start the company, so I decided to work and help them operate that while we were getting ready to move forward with Gemini. And what really struck me about giving back and helping and mentoring students within that program was that there's so much knowledge that we, for example, in the enterprise world, take for granted, and how many eager students are out there that are dying to build business plans or build solutions out there. And so the main driver for me was that why not expose more people to the challenges of enterprises in terms of how they can address and tackle big problems. If you think about it, right, the media companies get the glory. Well, I want to build the next Facebook. I want to build the next Snapchat. And there's a lot of those ideas. But the reason a lot of those ideas is because that's at the mass level where people are using them. And so they start thinking about how can I make this better. But, being at IBM, right, and being in the industry, I think you can agree that there's so many new challenges and new innovative ways that we need to look at it. So for me, it was about that mind expansion of young entrepreneurs to show them the way of how you can tackle those challenges, taking my experience of being across 5 different startup companies and helping them avoid the pitfalls in terms of how you go to market with your product to how you start fundraising for your company. This is kind of valuable pieces of information that are not that easy to understand when you're, let's say, a freshman or sophomore in college. And I believe that the more people that can actually take that risk when they graduate from college and start a company or tackle a big problem, I think the better off we're going to be as not only as a country, but as kind of a society versus keeping everything so locked up.
Are you still intimately involved with it?
I'm still involved in it, but I've reduced the amount of time because Gemini is pretty demanding. But
it take a lot of your time, I presume.
yeah. But I do have involvement where I get quarterly updates from some of the companies that we're involved with. They're exciting companies. Like one of them, for example, Rapid SOS is they're attacking the 911 outdated systems that are out there that they're doing quite well and integrated with Apple and Google and all sorts of other technologies. Others that are involved within the space technology. So they're just interesting from that perspective because of the audacity that they have to tackle these big challenges. So it's just always exciting to check in quarterly and see how well they're doing. And we've always have maintained good relations with them that they come to us. But they've kind of gone beyond that early seed stage to the next level where they're working with other folks that are helping them get to the next level.
If there was one particular piece of advice or insight for any entrepreneurs out there listening, doesn't have to be data, but whether it's building a business around data or just kicking up a new startup, what would you say it is? The one piece of advice, overwhelming.
I'm going to say 2. One is to pick the right team member. Make sure that you partner in doing something together with the right team. I have the luxury of working with the folks that I've done doing 5 startups before and bringing the right team together. But a lot of times I see young entrepreneurs rushing to it and not really thinking about their team because you're living with these people day in, day out if they're your extended family. So I can't emphasize how much it means to find somebody that's complementary to what you're doing. And the second thing, which I actually learned from the students that I mentored at founder.org, is not to think small. Think really, really big in terms of like the problems that you can address. And if anybody's trying to persuade you that that'll never happen or that won't happen because of regulation, then I think you might have a really good idea. Because a lot of people like to say no, and you have to push the envelope a little harder to come up with something big.
Nice. Very good. Hey, with the few minutes we have left, I like to do it's probably my favorite thing to do is the lightning round and ask you a few questions, somewhat of what we just asked in terms of your thoughts on leadership, etc. If you're game, these are like just a couple sentence answers just for the audience to get to know you and also maybe get some tips and tricks around leadership or whatever else comes up. You game?
Yep.
All right. Well, this is a softball. First of all, what do you do for fun?
I like to mountain bike and hike.
Mountain bike and hike. Didn't you say something earlier? I thought you were going to say, fishing or trout fishing or something you said.
I use it as an analogy, the fly fishing. It's on my list to do, but I haven't perfected that yet.
Well, you and me both. All right, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of my family and having the ability to start Gemini. Really excited, years of work to get this going.
What is the best leadership advice you've ever received?
Know your people. Working with people and spending time on understanding not only at a personal level what makes somebody tick, but what's driving them at a professional level is really kind of the one key tip that I've had from the beginning is if you kind of engage and can connect with people who have the right chemistry, you can do a lot of cool things. But if you're just treating everybody just in terms of like a number and just a standard process, you're not going to build the best teams, but you're going to have a struggle because you don't have that personal connection.
By the way, as an editorial, I think you're spot on with the team and your suggestions around people because I think to accomplish anything significant, it is very important to have a great accountability partner or accountability team. You see most of the startups and some of the great leaders we have, even in tech, they always have a counterpart. It's usually a two-headed monster very often. All right, so what is the best mentor you've had, and why was that individual one of the best mentors?
Yeah, one of the best mentors is working with Michael, who's a former founder and CEO of Splunk. I mean, we spent a lot of time together in the early days of Splunk when people laughed us out of meetings because they could understand the company's name and technology. But working with him in those early days was really a great experience from the perspective of how to actually understand customer requirements and translate that effectively and quickly to your engineering teams to make sure that you're in line and building a sales-driven engineering culture to make sure that you're connecting and bringing the right relevant strategy to the table. So it's been great working with him.
Any good failures you've learned from?
Yeah, I think this one's said a lot. I don't think I believed it until you go through it. But sometimes when you're building a business and you really have an idea and you want to perfect it, and then that whole saying goes, fail fast, fail early. If you're trying to build a company or if you're trying to do a specific strategic strategy within your company, just go do it. Don't analyze it to death because you're going to figure out quickly. In our case, we had some go-to-market strategies that I wanted to try in international markets, and we just went after and did it quickly. And in some cases, we spent too much time on it. And the ones that we actually failed on, we were already on and doing a different strategy that's proving to be successful. But just fail early because you'll see the results better. Because you don't have too much time, especially in an early stage or fast-growing company, to overanalyze things.
What about the number one thing you want to learn right now?
The number in relation to technology, business,
could be anything. There's no rules.
Wow, that's a vast one. I would say the number one thing that pops to mind that I actually would like to learn is we do a lot of business in the Middle East, so I'd like to learn Arabic as a language.
Wow, that is a lofty goal.
That's my lofty goal. I think the other aspect of it that I like to advantage is to have more, flexibility in terms of learning more about this quantum computing and how it's going to change things from a business perspective and how it can be impactful in the future because there's a lot of noise and buzz around that, but learning more about that would be interesting.
That's a good answer. So last question, and then I'll save you after this one. What does your future hold? I mean, what's the horizon look like for you?
For me, hopefully we will be continuing successful at Gemini here, but one of the things I'd like to get back to at a certain point is back to the social aspect of what we started doing with founder.org. I'd like to not go back and actually help others build companies or help kind of contribute back to developing companies. That's a true passion for me, is introducing new technology to the market. I think is some people might call it boring or too much of a risk taking, but that's where I like taking bold new things to market and helping others accomplish that goal in the future is something that I'd like to do.
Nicely done. So Tony, Ayaz, thank you so much for being with us today. I think we hit on a lot of good points. We broke down some of the technology around Gemini. I think the lightning round was very good too. So thank you. I appreciate you taking your time today. And where's the best place that the audience can find you?
Yeah, I'm Tony at GeminiData.com. And of course, you can go to GeminiData.com as well for information, but very easily accessible. And appreciate to everybody that's listening to this podcast. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tony. For everybody else, I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Making Data Simple podcast, where we make data fun. Be sure to visit IBMBigDataHub.com/podcast to access the show notes and uncover even more great episodes. Remember, the views expressed here are those of the host and its guests, and do not necessarily represent the views of IBM. Until next time, over and out.